I thank you ever so much, guys. I think that's good to understand the delays and the issues we've faced. But Tim mentioned the word furlough. And before we all came onto this excerpt on this video live session, Jenny, who I'm going to come on to next, so brace yourself, Jenny, talked about furlough. And obviously, we are coming to the end of furlough. I think October, November is where we'll start to see people being made redundant. Jenny, over to you. From a perspective of a landlord, there are going to be people that is going to be affected by this. So tenants that lose their jobs, or the ones that don't lose their jobs and actually just say, I can't afford to pay you because of X, Y, Z. What is your communication to landlords in this difficult financial period?
Well, there's no right or wrong answer here. It's untested waters, but the advice we're given from professional bodies is to keep dialogue open with tenants. I'm just going to start with tenants because that's where the problem may lay. A lot of tenants are finding themselves in a position they've never ever been in before, never been out of work, never been unable to pay their rent, and they're embarrassed and they don't want to talk about it because they're embarrassed. They don't know how the system works because they've never been there before. Tenants that we have spoken to over the probably last 6 months or so, some of them we've been able to reassure that there is a safety net and help them get into that system, and knowing that hopefully it's only short term for them. Some of them are quite proactive, others just normal personality types, going to bury their heads in the sand about it and not want to talk to you about it. And the tenants we're having the most difficulty with are those that actually won't talk to us about it at all. And we can't force them to talk to us, we can't force them to reply to our phone calls or our emails. But those are the people who are starting to build arrears, and we are not really able to do much about it. Now, from us with the landlord point of view, obviously we can keep the landlord informed of what we're doing. We have to keep really good records about the kind of things that we are speaking. We've got to have a paper trail so that if it did come to court, we need to be able to show the court the effect that COVID-19 has had on the tenant and their ability to run their tenancy correctly. Now, it's really difficult for us to know how it's affected a tenant. So the only thing we can do is keep asking questions and keep good records of that. But if a tenant doesn't want to interact with you, there's nothing you can do. From us with a landlord point of view, we can just keep the landlord informed that we are on it and that we are doing it. We can copy the landlord in, but actually, mostly they would prefer to have a summary of what's going on. They don't want the day-to-day blow of what's happening. But what the situation is, if you do need to give somebody notice, if that's where it's going to end up, and probably these people who won't speak to you are the ones that you are going to have to take to court, because you can't actually get anywhere with them at all because they won't speak. If you go into court, it's a 6 month notice period right now. The courts are open again, but of course they've got a lot of backlog. But if their arrears are more than 6 months, then the notice period drops down to 4 weeks. So we're going in using different clauses. We're using Section 8 rather than Section 21s. There's a lot of evidence we've got to put forward. The burden of proof is huge, and it's a discretionary call on the parts of the courts. So we need a good evidence package. We also need to show that we've done everything we possibly can to try and resolve a situation. But at the end of the day, if it goes to court, it's still at the judge's discretion whether they'll give the property back. And so it's a very, very uncertain time for landlords. And all we can do is just keep trying to communicate. That's it.
Mm. Anyone, any thoughts on that one? Bronwyn, any thoughts on that one?
Well, I use expert agents like Jenny because for me it's a minefield. If you don't have the knowledge about the intricacies of what Jenny's just been talking about, then it's really hard as an investor, because you don't know whether you're doing it in the right way. So I always advocate working with experts, but particular specialist experts like Jenny for HMOs, or, you know, people who are also investors themselves who really, really want to get this right. That's really key. And communication, that's all it is, really. It's how can you communicate? If they won't respond to you, that's really frustrating. But there's different ways of communicating. Sometimes you could even do it on text or Instagram. Maybe they'll respond at that point, you know, or even a letter through their door, under their door. You know, we've got to try our hardest to be open and honest, and that's all we can ask for from them. If they're open and honest with us, then we can help them. If they're not, then, you know, you don't want it to go to that point, really.
Thank you so much for that. That's a very good point. And I think, again, it's a sobering comment to make about the legal process. I wasn't even aware of the 4-week thing. I've got to be honest, if you've got 6 months delays, thankfully, I'm not in that position. I do have communication tools out with my tenants, so I do know what's going on with them. And from a personal perspective, I think it is about communication two-way. As a landlord, I always say, what is your current situation? Are you healthy, first of all? And I always start with that. So start a conversation. And then hopefully they'll say, yes, I'm okay, physically, mentally, and all the rest of that. And then I'll go on to, are you affected by work? And then, again, you start to develop a conversation. So if you are a landlord, don't see the tenant or as someone you can't have a conversation with, because I think you certainly can. Just changing subjects slightly, Ali Khan has asked, hi all, I've heard that there is a way of reducing CGT, so it's a question for me obviously, when selling a property by lending money to a limited company that you own and utilizing different classes of shares. Can you explain how this would work?